Hi, everybody. This is Colleen with Speaking the Spirits, and I got my sidekick, Katie.
Hi.
And today we are going to talk about doppelgangers. Tim and Mark are missing a good podcast today, but they've got other plans today, so we decided to trudge on through the podcasting topics. And have you ever heard of a doppelganger?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I've been told I have doppelgangers, actually. People will be like, oh, I saw your doppelganger. And I'm like, sweet.
Yeah. So doppelgangers are a ghostly double of a living person, especially one that haunts its fleshy counterpart. So that's right. So it would be somebody who's haunting you that looks just like you. Now, we've had clients who said that they swear they've seen themselves in the house. That's the doppelganger. All right. So
spooky.
That is. Or two people who resemble each other very much. And you can see that all over the internet. If you go, there's a Nicolas Cage double or there's a who's somebody's double, right? You can see that. Unlike most folklore figures, a version of doppelgangers actually exists. But the real thing is a little less sinister than legendary variety. That's what they say. Literally translated to double goer. A traditional doppelganger is the ghostly counterpart of a living person, and seeing one was believed to foreshadow all kinds of trouble. And I have a story about my own. So it's kind of interesting. It's kind of interesting that it says it's a foreshadow of trouble.
Uh-oh.
Yeah. So what did you find out about doppelgangers?
Are you going to share your story?
I will share the story.
Okay, I'll get my boring stuff out of the way.
Yeah, no.
Dang it. Well, I found just an interesting... let me back up. Okay, first of all, speaking of just the lookalikes, I don't know if you've heard, but there's a program. It's free. You can go online, put in pictures of yourself, and then a whole team filters through pictures that other people have submitted to try to find your doppelganger. Have you heard of that?
No, I need to do this.
Yeah, I'll have to try to find the link. Anyway,
that'd be cool. I wonder if they have the same cowlick I have. I keep seeing it on the video.
Doppelgangers are DNA, man.
I know, right?
So
crazy.
Anyway, so that's fun. But no, we were actually just talking about theory. I love social theory. There is a professor. I don't even know where he's at. Okay, he's a professor of American Studies at Cal State Fullerton. Okay. Adam Golub. I hope I'm pronouncing that correct. One of his main studies is analyzing inner monsters known as doppelgangers or shadow selves.
Wow.
So what's interesting is he has a new book project called America's Shadow, A Cultural History of the Doppelganger, which I think is cool. I love urban legends and things, looking at the cultural history, because urban legends are always a reflection of the times and society. So this book looks really good, but it examines how doppelgangers have evolved since the early 19th century. So let's see. Where does he talk about? Okay, so before doppelgangers made an appearance in the American cultural landscape, people were afraid of sea monsters, witches, ghosts, demons. By the late 1830s, so this is actually fairly early, their fears shifted to the haunting within. So to understand the emergence of these stories, Golub studies the cultural context of that time period, looking for historical clues to explain why society was susceptible to the idea of duplication and fragmented identities. And 1840s, what invention happened that was accessible to the main public? Photography. Made it possible for people to gaze upon themselves.
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Completely from the outside.
Well, right about this time too, you had all the spiritualists, right? And seances and all that stuff going on.
Yep, and a lot of them were using photography as a side note, which is also another social theory about how a person looking on the outside knows you better than you on the inside. So this technological advance brought the idea of the double selves. So a growing fascination also with psychology and consciousness during the times. Americans became interested in the idea of dual consciousness and the idea that the human mind has a divided quality to it. And he shares a story about, have you heard the Abraham Lincoln doppelganger story?
Not the story. I know that there has been a doppelganger, or lookalikes.
A lookalike? No, this is one of America's earliest doppelganger appearance. Occurred in 1860 when Abraham Lincoln allegedly claimed to see two versions of himself staring back in the mirror before his presidential reelection. With America on the brink of civil war, Golub said that the story symbolized society's fears about identity and duplicity as the nation was confronted with the possibility of splitting into North and South.
Wow.
Yep. So, of course, doppelgangers are very popular in Hollywood. Alfred Hitchcock, science fiction film Invasion of the Body Snatchers, Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde.
Invasion of the Body Snatchers was creepy. That creeped me out.
Yeah. But think about it from like a doppelganger perspective, like the idea that we're split consciousness. Right. And he also talks about how today's social networking feeds on that. Like, we show this social network side and then we have our inside self. And it's like, which one is the true you? And so Americans right now are grappling with that. Like, we're having an identity crisis. And socially, he considers that a doppelganger. And I thought that was really interesting.
That is interesting.
Like, from a psychological perspective.
Right. That is interesting.
Yeah.
So, I'm sure that you have heard, I saw someone looks just like you, right?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yes.
I
see your doppelganger.
Yeah. So you've probably heard that at least once in your lifetime, but are people who look exactly like us possible, right? Exactly.
Like DNA?
Yeah. Well, Michael Sheehan, he's an assistant professor of neurobiology and behavior at Cornell University. He says it's true. He concluded in a recent study that our faces have evolved due to the importance of individuality to our species. And so they said, think about it. You walk down the street and you see a multitude of faces. How many look almost the same? And I think, I don't know that I've actually paid that, because I try not to go around people, but when you think about it, there's not that many. So my mom, when she was a detective back in the day before computers, right, they would have doing a sketch artist thing, right?
Right.
So they would have facial types in a book, because she would bring it home. Right. And it would be round, square, blah, 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 triangular,
archetypes of everything.
Yeah. But there's not that many.
No.
And then you start layering. They had these binders where somebody said, okay, it's that face. So then they'd have a square face. And then you would have all of these series of eyes.
And you'd lay them on
and they'd layer them, and then they'd say it's that eye. And because there's not really that many.
Maybe it's just that there's a lot of combinations.
Yeah, there's a lot of combinations, but it actually worked back then. And
which is wild.
Yeah, it is wild. And then from there, then they'd get this, that's the guy. Then they could sketch it out with more of, okay, I had longer sideburns, or,
like details.
They'd get the basic structure down, and then the sketch artist could then do all the details.
Crazy.
Yeah. And, I look at sometimes the sketch artist stuff you see it on the criminal shows, because I'm hooked on all those. And they never look to me. Very rarely do you go, oh yeah, that looks just like the picture. Normally, most of the time I'm like, I don't know that guy from nothing. That doesn't look anything like the picture. But anyway, I just don't have that
time with that.
Yeah. But I also had a really hard time with in class when they would have a box all just flat, and then you're supposed to be able to then say that picture, those squares on a paper, is a box. My mind couldn't say, well, if you fold it up and then do this and do that, it becomes a box. I'm like, what? I don't know. It's squares on a paper.
You're like squares, a pattern.
Right. I don't see things that way. Conceptually, it is very hard for me. So, so anyway, they also said, look at squirrels bandying about. Can you tell them apart? I don't know what that has to do with the doppelgangers, but they say we're phenomenally diverse, but you don't see that in other species. So, I mean, other than color, A horse is a horse. I mean, there are characteristics because, Arabians have the dished face, and there are characteristics within breed lines, but a horse is a horse is a horse. A squirrel is a squirrel is a squirrel.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So we're different.
Yeah.
As different as we are sitting here. So that's kind of interesting. But they're wondering if genes are running out of options. Like there's how many billions of people have lived, and genes are starting to run out of options. So now they're starting to repeat the patterns.
Now, yes.
That's mind blowing.
Yes,
right?
It is. Because think about you could be an exact mirror of somebody who lived 700
That's exactly what they're going for. Is they're saying there's an infinite number of options, but there's also been kind of like an infinite number of people since
time. Yeah.
Right. And so even though, we don't look like the Neanderthals, how many possible replications can there be before an exact carbon copy is made?
Oh, that hurts my brain.
That's is scary. That is intense.
Wow.
Yeah.
You could be looking at the face of somebody who looks just like your great times 10 grandma.
Right. I know. It's really wild, isn't it?
You also see people, have you seen on social media, they'll be like, my friend looks exactly like this guy in this old picture. And
they're exactly. Exactly. So is that just the genes
renewing,
making a carbon copy again? Because that's what genes do.
But that also means that the DNA of your parents met somewhere else. You know what I'm saying? That DNA had to match perfectly also. So
I've read anybody with blue eyes is supposed to have one common relative way back.
Well, because blue eyes green eyes are a mutation.
Right.
So we all have the same.
Right. And blue eyes and it was somebody who lived somewhere in Mesopotamia. All of a sudden had this genetic mutation and had blue eyes. And from that, now I don't know if I truly believe this. I don't know if I buy it, but they say everybody with blue eyes has one common relative all the way back to Mesopotamia.
You would have to, unless there were multiple genetic mutations.
A mutation can happen over and over. I mean, you just get the same gene theory going on, and then I'm sure the mutation can happen over and over, and that's why we still have blue eyes. Because I remember reading years and years ago that they said within 2 generations, blue eyes would be extinct.
Yeah.
Blue eyes and red hair, which is what I was born with. You can't see the red anymore, but blue eyes and red hair. And they said it would be extinct, but they have certainly not lived in Idaho because there's so many blue-eyed redhead kids here.
It's a thing.
It's a thing here. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering, somebody said, well, our genes are kind of like a Rubik's cube. You get all this variation, that there's a numbers game to it. Okay, so let's put genes into, we have all of these genetic diverse things, but that doesn't explain how can you see yourself? And the paranormal side of this is... Yes. So
string theory?
Oh God, I don't know. So we've taken calls from people who are haunted by themselves, and it's a really hard thing to figure out. It's really rare, but we have taken those calls. I saw myself, and
that's right.
In Texas, driving in. So I'm driving down the road. I lived on this tiny little subdivision in Texas.
So creepy.
And I go, there's 5, there's a little tiny road, and Fox Hollow Drive I lived on, and there's no foxes because it's a subdivision. But anyway, driving down Fox Hollow Drive, and I go to pull in my driveway, and I saw myself sitting on the bench in front of my front door. And I stopped,
that gives
and
me
I
chills.
I had a Jeep, and I stopped the Jeep, and I'm looking at myself, and she's looking at me. But what was really crazy was at the same time, I'm like, why am I in my Jeep? As I'm thinking, why am I on the bench? So it was I had the conscious thought of.
You didn't tell me that part.
That was.
You were picking up on
both. So I am in both places at once, and I cannot figure that out. I don't know what happened. And I'm watching myself through 2 sets of eyes, seeing myself in the Jeep, seeing myself on the bench, and we're staring at each other. And when I looked down, when I pulled in the driveway, we're still looking at each other. When I reached down, like put the Jeep in park and undo my seatbelt, and I looked up, gone.
That is literally...
So that's when I was present totally in the Jeep. But for that 5 seconds that I was conscious of what's happening here. That happened, and it's never happened again. Although I've heard myself here and there occasionally, like talking.
That is like string theory. That is a pivotal moment in string theory. The minute the two timelines collide, poof, that's when the string splits. Have you seen, there's a great, amazing movie, if you haven't seen it, anyone listening, if you haven't seen it and this is interesting to you, you have to watch it. It's called Another Earth. Have you heard of it?
No.
With Britt Marling, who is my freaking idol. She's amazing with stuff like this. It's about string theory, essentially, but also it's about Earth, our Earth. We come in contact, like over a radio, like in the space station, with another people, right? So we're like, ooh, we found another like human species, whatever. The lady on the radio is talking to herself.
That's like that.
And they see each other. And at the end, there's a crazy, amazing twist. And the movie is emotional. It also deals with like other issues and grief and lots of other human-y things. But the string theory is just a small background of it. But the minute you are conscious of your other dimension, your other self, is the minute that string theory is like, poof, you're living in two different timelines.
So somewhere I'm having a good time, somewhere else.
Or a worse time, girl. It doesn't guarantee anything.
That's true.
But it just is. You guys have got to watch this movie. Anyway.
I have to watch.
You need to watch it.
This stuff is really freaky. We've talked about, could it be dimensional, like we're in different dimensional planes all the time?
Or
like,
is it just,
stacked?
The theory of the pond with the lily pads? Are we all just, there's more than one of us because of string theory, but we're all in the same pond, just on different lily pads? It's not a string. It's just lily pads.
I don't know. It's really hard. It's really hard to comprehend. I'm not sure.
It's mind blowing, huh?
They're saying that our doppelganger. So in my case, it was me. It was me. It wasn't a doppelganger. Now I've had a lot of people say, "Oh, I know somebody who looks just like you."
That's like a social doppelganger.
This was me because I was having the two thoughts at the same time of why am I in my Jeep? Like, why am I on the bench? It was that fleeting, those seconds that just...
Bizarre.
That was bizarre. So, but they're saying that doppelgangers have the same smile, the same color eyes, but usually there's something that isn't quite exact between the two. I didn't see him enough. I didn't see myself enough to know if that was, but it sure was me. I mean, it was me.
Yeah. Well, and then poof, you were gone.
And then I was gone. Exactly what happened.
What if you were like contacting yourself and you just didn't know it?
Oh, I don't know.
What if future you was like, "What's up, girl? Nice Jeep."
Or could it have been a warning of what was to come because something right after that happened? There's my dog.
Oh, man.
My old dog. He said I got lonely.
I got some fire in his butt now.
Yes, he does. So I don't know. They're saying, sorry about the dog noise, but the old guy, he runs the house. So they're saying that our facial attributes are like the spinning wheel of features, like with 7 billion people in the world. It's fun, if not a bit eerie, to think that someone out there looks so much like this that we have to do double take. Fergus McGee.
He's happy to be here. Hi.
Folk wisdom says that everyone has a doppelganger. Oh,
Fergus.
Sorry, guys. He's chaos. This is chaos theory. Somewhere out there's a perfect duplicate of you with your mother's eyes, your father's nose, and that annoying mole you've always meant to have removed. The notion has gripped popular imagination for millennia. So apparently even royalty was they were totally freaked out and scared of it.
Oh, yeah. I could see why.
Yeah.
That would be eerie to
well,
be infiltrated.
If you're royalty back in the day, the whole purpose, I mean, you went to war, it was to protect the crown, whatever, your seat, your kingdom, your subjects, everything.
If there's a doppelganger that like infiltrates.
Yeah, can you imagine? That would be a really good movie or book or series.
Ooh.
We should write that.
Okay, we'll put it on our list of so many things to do.
Think about it.
Okay.
Wouldn't that be fun?
That would be
really
sweet.
Cool. I don't know. Let's see. Okay, so there was somebody who was armed with a public collection of photographs of the U.S. military personnel, and with their help of colleagues from the University of Adelaide, this person, Tegan, painstakingly analyzed the faces of nearly 4,000 individuals, measuring distances between eyes and ears and nose and mouth and all that kind of thing. And they calculated that there's a 1 in 135 chance that there's a single pair of exact doppelgangers. They say there's only 1 in 135. That's a huge possibility. That's a huge possibility considering what there's 600. Right. How many billions of people are alive? They're like, there's only 1 and I'm like, only? That's big. That's enormous.
That's huge. That's literally how many of me are in Blackfoot right now?
Right.
What the fuck?
I know. I hope that my doppelganger is richer, thinner.
But you know what, too? Think about this. Okay, if there's a 1 in 135 chance, roughly, all right?
Right.
That person...
Out of every 136 people you meet, you could be meeting yours.
But they could all be different ages.
Oh.
You might see your doppelganger, your genetic doppelganger who's 89, or a baby.
Oh. You just blew my mind.
Woo!
That's like all over the string, so that's in...
Or face-wise, it could be a male. Do you know what I'm saying?
Oh, yeah.
You could have a male, or if you're a male, a female that has
the same structure.
Yeah, that has similar facial features.
It doesn't say that it has to be necessarily the same sex. That's bizarro.
That's crazy.
I don't know. The whole thought of, like, I had that one incident that I saw myself, and I don't even know where to go with that story.
That's
other than
rabbit hole
I know, and I was wondering because something happened right after that to this day has shaken me, that I still don't know if it was real, if what happened to me was real.
That's why I'm saying, do you think it was you in the future going back, like
warning me?
Yeah,
and it could have, and I don't know, because there's something that happened like within a week following that was like. So I'm wondering if we see our doppelganger. Is it a precursor? Some theories, folklore says it's a precursor to something bad, or a precursor to a change, not necessarily something bad, but it's a precursor to a change. Or is it a warning from, do we slip back in time? Like we're slipping back going, hey, you're not aware of this, but this is going to happen. Is it like the butterfly effect that if that happens? I mean, that's weird. The whole thing is just spooky to me. I have a hard enough time with here and now and trying to think of all of the alternate dimensions. It's
too much for my little.
It is. That's why I drink. I'm like, I can't deal with this, man. I just can't. It's too much. So, do you have anything else on the whole doppelganger thing?
Unless we want to explode brains.
No.
No.
I don't know if I can handle that today.
Yeah, no.
Yeah. Anyway, we hope you enjoyed it. I would love to hear that if you've actually met your doppelganger or heard your own voice talking to you, like audibly. I'm disembodied voice kind of thing, but you recognize your own voice. So is it you? I mean, I've heard snippets of it here and there since that one sighting. So I don't know what's going on. I don't know. I would love to hear from our audience. Let us know. Anyway, this is Speaking of Spirits, and our doppelganger signing out for the day.